Hey, thanks for stopping by my neck of the woods. I'm the gig geezer in Wood Lane, and when I'm out there driving, I'm out there to make some money. I want to help you maximize your gig hustle. I hope that your holiday was enjoyable and you've gotten 2022 off to the start that you desire. The gig geezer is in the midst of his first half hustle, but I had a thought that I just really had to get out there, and I kind of held back on it in the previous segment of the gig geezer, but this time I'm just going to not hold back. I mentioned a point in the previous segment of the gig geezer in which I have made since between 2018, the calendar year 2018 to 2021, or the tax years of 2018 to 2021, I have made over $210,000 in just gig hustle work alone. And I said, the first thing I said was that you can't be thirsty and expect to make that type of money. And that is the point of this segment of the gig geezer. Don't be a thirsty. You can't be a thirsty. Why am I talking about this? Now, there are those whom I know would get on my case right off the bat and say, look, you're trying to offend people. You're trying to chase people away from your channel. And then there are those who are saying, well, I must be some crazy old guy who thinks that saying things like this is going to draw people to my channel. Well, that's never been the purpose of me doing the Gig Geezer segments. In fact, my sole purpose of the Gig Geezer segment was really heartfelt. I felt that after having been in the gig economy for over 5 years, that means starting at the time since September 2016, I have accrued some experience, and I can share some things that can help you in your hustle. And you can't make Gig Geezer type money being a thirsty. Now, I've said that three times already about thirsty. So what is a thirsty? A thirsty defined is someone who is desperate, someone who is willing to accept anything. And in a gig economy work, there are people out there who are desperate. They're willing to accept anything. If not that, out of their ignorance, they accept anything, and that's really starting out. But there are those people who've been around and willingly accept just anything. And they go about with this desperateness and so guess what? They make what I call thirsty money. Now, there are a lot of people with their gig channels. They show certain type of orders that they accept, be it on DoorDash, UberEats, GrubHub, maybe even Instacart, maybe even BiteSquad. And I'm not gonna attack those people, but I'm going to share from my perspective. I believe when you accept orders, and I know a lot of this also depends on the market that you're in though, but for the gig geezer and in this market, and I really believe in any market, when you're accepting orders for $6.50, $7, stacked orders for $10 and $11, you're not making no money, because you've got to take into consideration your time. What is your time worth? What are you worth? And so if you don't value yourself, then yes, you're thirsty. Now, I first started using the term thirsty actually stemming from someone whom I had met back in 2017. And she says, hey, I'm not thirsty. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do that. She was actually talking in terms of relationships. But I kind of use that in terms of people, because at the time I was doing ride sharing, primarily ride sharing. I began to drive drivers who would show up at the airport, and you could just see it. You could just see it in the way they carried themselves, in the way they went about doing things, how they accepted any ride, and every ride. And I had come to learn very fast doing ride sharing not to accept every ride. Turn them down. You don't have to accept that $3 ride, that ride around the corner for the $2. That's a waste of time and effort. I also learned one of my tricks that I will share is that with Lyft and actually with Uber, but with Lyft in particular, when I felt that I had a rider who would waste my time with a short ride, a short fare, I would wait about 10, 12 hours later, because knowing that they got to get back, they'll probably be riding a Lyft again. I would rate them a 2-star to make sure that I would not be paired with that person again. Knowing that, hey, riders can rate you just anything in every way. I can rate them the same way. If they were wasting my time, they were a 2-star. And if they were a jerk or a moron about it, they were a 1-star. So, there were ways that I protected myself. The other thing in ride sharing, what I learned was that there were certain places, just like when I used to be a cab driver back home in Houston, decades earlier. I learned very fast in Houston that there were certain addresses, the way the rides were dispatched back then. They were radio dispatched. They weren't computer dispatched as they are now. So they were radio dispatched. And let's say the dispatcher would say, Westheimer 13. You answer Westheimer 13, and then they give you an address, and it's to a Kroger or a Fiesta supermarket. Well, then you knew that ride was probably worth about $3. That's a waste of your time. Even back in 1987, 88, that was a waste of your time. And so I learned to avoid those rides. I wouldn't even show up. I'd keep going. Yeah. And so that was another trick that I learned. Now, really the reason why I call drivers thirsties, I mentioned about at the airport, is because at certain times of the year, there would be people, all of a sudden, there would be this mass gathering of drivers at the airport. Instead of about 10, 12 drivers I would usually be, there would be 30 drivers. And they're all waiting to try to catch an airport ride. Well, guess what? You're a thirsty. You are a thirsty because you're doing something that probably you got no business doing. That was just my feeling. Then I started using that term very derisively, doing Amazon Flex. Now, when I was doing Amazon Flex, well, people think that a 3-hour block for $54, that's good money. And it could be, based on what you're used to, that is good money. But when you get out there, and it doesn't take long, you realize a 3-hour block for $54 is nothing. That's nothing. In the time I did Amazon Flex, I did it for about 11 months. I made over $33,000. I averaged over $3,000 a month doing Amazon Flex. That was better than the van drivers. And that's how when I think I mentioned in the previous segment about I ended up getting a friendly, well-written email telling me that I'd been deactivated permanently from Amazon Flex. Well, part of it was cursing out the van company's supervisors and telling them how they're taking money from us, the Amazon Flex drivers. And so when one of them asked me, well, why don't you come on with us? I said, man, why would I take a pay cut? And then the Amazon supervisor nodded her head. The supervisor is actually literally a next door neighbor of mine. She nodded her head. Yeah, that'd be a pay cut for him, because I was making more than what they're making. These guys are making $15, $16 an hour, and I'm making over $20 an hour doing Amazon Flex. What's interesting is during my Amazon Flex days, there were people who admitted, well, I guess I must be a thirsty if I take orders like that, if I take blocks like that all the time. But it seems as if they never changed for what they're doing. So, yeah, I get that. You do what you do. I do what I do. At the same time, I can go on and on and on of examples of thirst. Instacart, you got a $7 order, 56 items, no tip, and you're driving 8 miles. That's a thirst order. BiteSquad, $5.51, and from the location that you're at, you're 20 miles away from the restaurant. And then from the time that the estimated time of arrival to the estimated time of delivery is another 20 minutes. That's a thirst order. as I mentioned, when it comes to ride sharing, there were certain locations that you knew, certain parts of the city, certain parts of your market, certain pickup places. You know that those rides are likely to go nowhere. So those are thirst rides. Okay, it goes on and on and on. In fact, as we're talking, these are some of the examples of what I consider are thirst orders. I've kept a pretty good library of those. Now, someone is probably saying derisively, "Oh, you do it yourself." Guess what? The Gig Geezer rarely accepts orders less than his parameters. We're talking less than 5% of the time. And there's a reason for that. I don't like the feeling of when I realize that if I accept a stacked order and come to find out one of them is actually a new tip order, I feel as if someone has gotten over on me. I don't like that feeling. And so I try to avoid that feeling. I don't like if I come to find out if and when I was doing ride sharing, I drive, and this actually happened. It appeared I accepted a ride in a part of the Columbia market that I had a lot of success, at least accepting rides or dropping people off in that area. Well, I accepted one and went out that way, and come to find out the guy was going about 5 minutes from the pickup. It was actually at a blood bank. Now that person's really thirsty himself because he's selling his blood. But I felt like a fool for accepting that ride. I guess I'm one of those who are, you could say, is highly competitive, and in my own way. And I'm not in it to lose. I'm in it to make money, man. And the way to make money is to set parameters for yourself, set a value for yourself, and sticking to it. That's why I say a part of the hustle is that, as I've said, you've got to trust your instincts. Your instincts are going to lead you correct 75-80% of the time. You've got to take chances sometimes. There's a gambling element involved with this hustle, as with any hustle. You also, I believe, in order to make the money that I make, you've got to multi-app. You've got to work multiple apps. Some say diversifying your income. You have to do that. You can't be mono. You cannot be a mono app person, because something can go wrong. The app can go wrong. There was one day where there was a big DoorDash had a crash in its app, and orders were an hour and a half backed up. That's a portion of someone's day. That could be a quarter of somebody's day, depending on how many hours they work. What else? You cannot have a W-2's mentality doing 1099 work. And I believe part of the thirst element is because people have W-2 mentalities. They're thinking dollars per hour when they should just be thinking about dollars at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month. And since we just completed another calendar year, end of the year. That's another thing. So you have to change your mindset in order to make your hustle work. And that's universally with any hustle. You got to change your mindset. You cannot go in with that type of man. If you're a hustler, you're a gambler, you can't go in. Scared money don't make no money. Thirst money don't make no money. That's what it's all about. And with that, this is another segment of the Gig Geezer. I'm in Wood Lane, and may your hustle continue.
Thank you for checking out this segment of the Gig Geezer. If you like the content that's been provided, hey, hit that subscribe button and also give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions or useful information that you'd like to pass on to the Gig Geezer, I can be reached at giggeezer3.5 @gmail.com.